My name is Alex. I've always thought of myself as a normal, middle-aged man living an unremarkable life in the suburbs of Chicago. It was an ordinary evening when I left the office after a hard day's work. The November wind pinched my cheeks, and I turned up the collar of my coat, trying to keep warm. I decided to cut the road through the park. At this time of day, the park was almost empty, and I loved walks when I could be alone with my thoughts. The weak light of the lanterns barely made its way through the thick leaves of the trees. As I passed by one of the benches, I noticed a woman sitting with her head down. Her blonde hair fell over her face, hiding it from me. I decided not to disturb her and continued walking, but when I was already passing by, I heard a quiet voice. "Excuse me, do you have time?" I stopped and turned around. The woman raised her head and I saw her eyes, large, expressive, with a shadow of fear. "Of course," I answered. "What happened?" "I'm lost," she said. "My name is Melanie. Could you help me find my way home?" Melanie looked confused and scared. I decided to help her, even though something inside me told me that it might not be the best idea. "Of course, Melanie," I said. "Where do you need to get to?" She gave an address that was not too far from the park. We started walking together, and along the way she talked about herself. Melanie turned out to be a very interesting interlocutor, although something in her story did not seem entirely believable to me. She said she works as a nurse at a local hospital and comes home after a long day at work. We reached her house and I bid her good night. But when I turned my back to her, I felt a light touch on my shoulder. I turned to see her holding a small notebook. "Is this yours?" she asked. I took the notebook and saw that it really belonged to me. I was surprised because I did not remember how I could lose it. "Thank you, Melanie." "It's very strange that you have him," I said, feeling a chill run down my spine. The next day, I couldn't get yesterday's meeting with Melanie out of my head. There was something unusual about her, but I couldn't figure out what exactly. In the evening, I decided to walk the same route through the park again, hoping to see her again. But when I got to the bench where we met, she wasn't there. The park was empty and quiet. I sat down on the bench, trying to remember all the details of our conversation. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw a middle-aged man standing there looking at me. "Are you looking for someone?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "Yesterday evening, I met a woman named Melanie here. Didn't you see her?" The man frowned and answered, "Melanie? No one has lived here for several years. She disappeared under mysterious circumstances." My thoughts returned to the notebook Melanie had returned to me last evening. At home, I decided to watch it again, looking for some clues. When I opened it, I found several pages filled with handwriting that was not mine. There were written dates and places where it seems that someone was watching me. The more I read, the more afraid I became. The entries contained details of my daily habits, routes to work, and even descriptions of my friends and colleagues. It was incredibly scary. Someone was watching me the whole time. The next day, I decided to contact the police. I told them about Melanie, about the notebook, and about someone watching me. The officer who answered my call looked skeptical but agreed to check the information. Meanwhile, I decided to investigate her disappearance myself. I found some old newspaper articles about the disappearance of a young nurse named Melanie Green. She was last seen returning home from work late at night. The more I read, the more I understood that our acquaintance was not accidental. Melanie knew something, and maybe her disappearance had something to do with what she was trying to tell me. This is just the beginning of the story. If you like it, I will continue it, creating even more parts for an exciting and scary story. Reading old newspapers made me feel like I was part of some kind of horror novel. Soon, one of the articles caught my attention. It described Melanie's strange behavior in the days before her disappearance. She often spoke to someone on the phone, but as if she was afraid to be heard. An idea immediately came to me. I decided to call the hospital where Melanie worked. To my surprise, her colleagues still remembered her, but seemed reluctant to talk about the details. One of the nurses, Rachel, finally agreed to meet me after work. We met in a small coffee shop near the hospital. Rachel looked wary, looking around before speaking. "Did you know Melanie?" she asked. "No, I met her recently, but I need to know more about her disappearance," I answered. Rachel took a deep breath and began to tell. "Melanie was a kind and sensitive person, but lately she has been very stressed. She said that she was being watched. I thought it was paranoia, but now that it's gone, I doubt my words. She said that Melanie often received anonymous calls and letters with threats, but no one took it seriously. Rachel also mentioned a strange man who often came to the hospital and asked about Melanie. After meeting with Rachel, I felt that I was getting closer to the solution, but the situation became even more confusing when I noticed that I myself was being followed. On my way home, I felt like I was being watched. The shadows on the walls seemed alive, and every rustle made me look around. One evening, when I was returning home, I was stopped by a man in a dark coat. He looked normal, but there was a strange coldness in his eyes. "Alex, I know what you're looking for." "But it's better to stop before it's too late," he said, and disappeared into the darkness. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the thought that I had been warned for a purpose. I looked through the notebook again and found a new entry made after I met Melanie. Someone kept recording, following me. It meant I was on the right track. I decided to contact a private detective. His name was Michael, and he had a reputation as a reliable investigator. I showed him the notebook and told him about my suspicions. Michael agreed to help, but warned that it could be dangerous. Michael began his investigation by checking the address where Melanie lived. He found out that she had rented an apartment before her disappearance, but the owner of the house had not seen her for a long time. Michael also found several neighbors who remembered her and said that she had seemed very frightened lately. We also learned that Melanie was often seeing a man who the neighbors believed was her boyfriend, but no one knew his name or what he did. All we had was a description of a tall man with dark hair. One day Michael called me and said he had found something important. We met in his office and he showed me the pictures. They showed Melanie with the same man. The photos were taken in different places, but they all show that they were close. I found out that this man is probably connected to several criminal cases. He uses false names and constantly changes his place of residence, said Michael. This was the first real clue. We decided to find him and find out what exactly he knows about Melanie's disappearance. Michael and I began following the man we named Thomas. We found that he frequents several places in the city, but always behaves carefully, as if he knows that he can be followed. One evening, when he went to a bar on the outskirts of town, we decided to go inside. Michael stayed in the car, and I went into the bar hoping to overhear his conversation. Thomas was sitting at a table with several people, and his voice was clearly audible. "We need to finish this thing. It has been dragging on for too long. I couldn't wait any longer." I approached the table and said, "Thomas, we need to talk." He looked at me in surprise, but did not lose his temper. "I don't know who you are," he replied coldly. "Do you know Melanie Green?" I asked. His face changed for a moment, and I realized that I had touched on a painful subject, but he quickly pulled himself together and said, "You better forget about it. It is dangerous for you." I left the bar knowing that I had gotten closer to the truth, but also knowing that I was putting myself in danger. Michael said we need to be more careful and find more evidence before we go any further. The next day, I received a letter with no return address. It had only one sentence: "Leave it before it's too late." But I couldn't stop anymore. Soon, I started receiving strange calls. Someone was silent on the other end of the line or left disturbing messages. I felt like someone was playing with me, trying to intimidate me. One day, I decided to answer and asked out loud, "Who is this?" On the other end of the line came a soft but clear voice. "Alex, you shouldn't have done that. You have no idea what you got yourself into." I decided to turn to an old friend of mine, Brian, who worked in the cybersecurity department, for help. I told him everything that was happening and asked him to help me deal with the calls. Brian agreed and began an investigation. He found out that the calls are coming from different places and someone is deliberately covering their tracks. But one of the addresses caught his attention. It was an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. We decided to check out the building. It was an old warehouse that had not been used for a long time. Brian and I went inside, making our way carefully through the dark corridors. In one of the rooms, we found listening equipment and computers. This confirmed our suspicions that someone was indeed following me. But who and why? Looking through the computers, we found a lot of information about Melanie. It turned out that she was close to uncovering some important case related to corruption in the hospital. But that was only part of the bigger picture. We also found evidence that she was being followed for even longer than we thought. Her disappearance was planned, and someone really didn't want the truth to come out. We realized that Thomas is not acting alone. He has accomplices who help him cover his tracks. One of them was probably someone from the hospital. We decided to go back to the hospital and talk to Rachel again. Rachel looked horrified when we told her about our findings. She admitted that she suspected one of the doctors, who had always been too close to Melanie. We decided to talk to this doctor, Dr. Richard. He looked calm and confident, but when we started asking questions about Melanie, his face changed. He tried to convince us that he didn't know anything, but we felt that he was hiding something. "We know you were close with Melanie. What are you hiding?" I asked. "I'm not hiding anything," he answered, but his eyes betrayed fear. Rachel agreed to help us and left the recorder in Dr. Richard's office. The next day, we listened to the recording and were shocked. On the recording, Richard was talking to someone on the phone. "They know more than we thought. We need to act faster." Alex becomes a problem. This confirmed our suspicions. We were on the right track, but time was working against us. While listening to the recording, we also heard Richard mention someplace outside the city. We decided to check this place out. It was an old house that had not been used for a long time. Michael, Brian, and I went there. Inside, we found many documents and photographs that indicated that Richard and Thomas were part of a larger conspiracy. But the worst thing was that among these documents were plans to get rid of me. We realized that this could be a trap, but it was too late to stop. We found proof that Thomas and Richard are up to something big that could put many lives at risk. Michael decided to act immediately. We contacted the police with our findings. The police agreed to help and began an investigation. The next evening, we all got together to discuss our course of action. We decided to catch Richard and Thomas red-handed. The police set up an ambush in the same house where we found the documents. When Thomas and Richard showed up, we were ready. The police took them into custody, but before they were let out, Thomas said, "It's not over yet, Alex. You have no idea what you're up against." With the arrest of Thomas and Richard, we thought it was all over. But really, that was just the beginning. The police started an investigation and discovered a whole network of corruption and crimes that went much deeper than we could have imagined. Melanie was actually the hero who tried to expose this network. But now that she was gone, we had to finish her case. We learned that Melanie left us more evidence than we thought. Her notebook was only part of it. She stored information in various places, and we began to search for these repositories. Rachel helped us find the first vault. It was an old box in the hospital where Melanie kept copies of documents. There, we found evidence that confirmed the connection between Richard, Thomas, and high officials. But with each new piece of evidence, we became more and more dangerous to those behind it all. We have started receiving threats and are facing various difficulties, but we weren't going to give up. One day, when Michael and Brian and I were returning from another storage, we were chased by a black car. We tried to break away from our pursuers, but they were persistent. "They don't want us to reveal the truth," said Michael. We understood that it is necessary to act radically. We turned to the police and asked for protection. The police agreed and helped us organize protection. The next morning, we set out for one of Melanie's final hideouts. There, we found videotapes documenting conversations between Thomas and high-ranking officials. This was decisive evidence. With the new evidence, we decided to make everything public. We gave the videos to journalists and organized a press conference. It was a decisive moment. Thanks to our work, the corruption network was exposed and the culprits were brought to justice. Thanks to Melanie, the truth came out. But we paid a heavy price for it. We have lost a lot, but at the same time, we have gained justice. It was a test of our courage and determination. Melanie's story did not end with her death. She inspired many people to fight for truth and justice. We continued her work, and thanks to her, the world became a little better. Life gradually returned to normality. Michael and Brian and I remained friends and continued to support each other. We knew we had made the right choice and were proud of what we had achieved. I was finally able to find peace. Melanie left a mark on my life, and I will always remember her courage and determination. She was a true hero who was not afraid to stand up against evil. Life goes on. I found new goals and started a new chapter in my life, but I will never forget the story that changed me forever. Every year I come to the place where Melanie left her mark. This place reminds me that one should always fight for the truth despite the difficulties. Thanks to our work, many people have united in a community that fights for justice and truth. We continue to help those in need and remember Melanie. Melanie was recognized posthumously. Her name became a symbol of courage and struggle for justice. She became an inspiration for many. Her legacy lives on. People remember and respect her courage. Michael and Brian and I remember her often and tell others about her exploits. In the end, we achieved victory. We revealed the truth and forced the guilty to face punishment. It was a difficult road, but we managed. We never lost faith. Belief in justice and truth helped us overcome all difficulties and achieve our goal. We are grateful to everyone who helped us along the way. Without the support of our friends and loved ones, we would not have managed. This story became a lesson for us. We have learned not to give up and always fight for the truth, even when it seems impossible. We always support each other. Our friends and loved ones have become our support in difficult times, and we will always be grateful to them for this. We learned to trust each other. It helped us to overcome all difficulties and achieve success. Cooperation was a key factor in our victory. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She was not afraid to stand up against evil, and we will always remember her feat. Hope helped us get through all the difficulties. We believed that the truth would prevail, and we were not mistaken. We became heirs to Melanie's case. We continue her work and fight for justice. The memory of Melanie will always live in our hearts. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. Life goes on. We have found new goals and continue to move forward, remembering those events that changed us forever. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Unity was a key factor in our victory. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. We have learned to sympathize and help those who need help. This has become our mission and the meaning of life. Melanie left us an important task: to fight for justice and truth. We accepted this task and continue its work. We are aware of our responsibility and do everything possible to achieve justice. Determination helped us overcome all difficulties and achieve our goal. We never gave up and always fought until the end. We believed in success and achieved it. Faith helped us go through all the difficulties and reach our goal. We always supported each other. Our friends and loved ones have become our support in difficult times, and we will always be grateful to them for this. We learned to trust each other. It helped us to overcome all difficulties and achieve success. Cooperation was a key factor in our victory. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She was not afraid to stand up against evil, and we will always remember her feat. Hope helped us get through all the difficulties. We believed that the truth would prevail, and we were not mistaken. We became heirs to Melanie's case. We continue her work and fight for justice. The memory of Melanie will always live in our hearts. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. Life goes on. We have found new goals and continue to move forward, remembering those events that changed us forever. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Unity was a key factor in our victory. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. We have learned to sympathize and help those in need. This has become our mission and the meaning of life. Melanie left us an important task: to fight for justice and truth. We accepted this task and continue its work. We are aware of our responsibility and do everything possible to achieve justice. Determination helped us overcome all difficulties and achieve our goal. We never gave up and always fought until the end. We believed in success and achieved it. Faith helped us go through all the difficulties and reach our goal. We always supported each other. Our friends and loved ones have become our support in difficult times, and we will always be grateful to them for this. We learned to trust each other. It helped us to overcome all difficulties and achieve success. Cooperation was a key factor in our victory. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She was not afraid to stand up against evil, and we will always remember her feat. Hope helped us get through all the difficulties. We believed that the truth would prevail, and we were not mistaken. We became heirs to Melanie's case. We continue her work and fight for justice. The memory of Melanie will always live in our hearts. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. Life goes on. We have found new goals and continue to move forward, remembering those events that changed us forever. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Unity was a key factor in our victory. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. We have learned to sympathize and help those in need. This has become our mission and the meaning of life. Melanie left us an important task: to fight for justice and truth. We accepted this task and continue its work. We are aware of our responsibility and do everything possible to achieve justice. Determination helped us overcome all difficulties and achieve our goal. We never gave up and always fought until the end. We believed in success and achieved it. Faith helped us go through all the difficulties and reach our goal. We always supported each other. Our friends and loved ones have become our support in difficult times, and we will always be grateful to them for this. We learned to trust each other. It helped us to overcome all difficulties and achieve success. Cooperation was a key factor in our victory. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She was not afraid to stand up against evil, and we will always remember her feat. Hope helped us get through all the difficulties. We believed that the truth would prevail, and we were not mistaken. We became heirs to Melanie's case. We continue her work and fight for justice. The memory of Melanie will always live in our hearts. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. Life goes on. We have found new goals and continue to move forward, remembering those events that changed us forever. We united for a common goal and achieved it together. Unity was a key factor in our victory. Melanie showed us what true courage is. She inspired us to do great things and left an unforgettable mark on our lives. We have learned to sympathize and help those in need. This has become our mission and the meaning of life. Melanie left us an important task: to fight for justice and truth. We accepted this task and continue its work. She started an investigation into corruption in the medical field, and we decided not to stop there. Our new mission has become the investigation of corruption schemes in various industries. We have created a team that specializes in detecting and solving criminal schemes. We started working with journalists and law enforcement agencies to uncover as many cases of corruption as possible. Our initial investigations led to the arrests and resignations of several high-ranking officials. This gave us even more motivation to continue our work. We understood that our activities make the world better and fairer. One of our biggest achievements is the uncovering of a large-scale corruption scheme in the construction industry. We found that many senior officials were involved in illegal land and construction transactions. Our evidence helped bring them to justice, but our work was not without danger. We have often received threats and faced pressure. However, we did not stop. We knew we were doing the right thing and were ready for all the challenges. The public supported us. People saw our work and began to trust us. This helped us gain even more support and resources for our investigations. Over time, our team grew. We were joined by other investigators, journalists, and activists who shared our values. Together, we have become a stronger force in the fight against corruption. Our work did not go unnoticed. We have received several awards for our investigations and contribution to the fight against corruption. This became an additional incentive for us to continue. One day, an informant approached us with important information about a corruption scheme in the pharmaceutical industry. This was a new case that we undertook to investigate. We knew it would not be easy, but we were ready for any challenges. We began an in-depth investigation, reviewing documents, conducting interviews, and gathering evidence. Our efforts brought results, and we were able to uncover a new corruption scheme that threatened the health of thousands of people. Thanks to our persistence and determination, we were able to stop this scheme and bring the perpetrators to justice. It was another victory in our fight for justice. We knew that new challenges lay ahead of us, but we were ready for them. We continue our work, investigate new cases of corruption, and fight for justice. Melanie's legacy lives on in our actions, and we owe our success to her. Life goes on, and we continue our mission. We know that the road to justice is long and thorny, but we are ready to follow it to the end. Melanie's story, her courage and determination became an example for us. We will continue her cause, fighting for justice and truth every day. And truth every day. And truth every day. And truth